Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. I recently made a video on lemon ginger chicken. And when I served that, I served it with creamed spinach. And I love creamed spinach. And I make it just a little bit differently than most folks do. So I thought I'd show you that. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up if you like our videos and subscribe. Click the little bell icon and you'll get a notice when I post new videos. So let's go over the ingredients quickly. I've got 3 10-ounce bags of spinach, and that sounds like an awful lot, but it really isn't. Then I'm going to use half this package, 4 ounces of cream cheese. I've got some garlic powder there. You can use fresh garlic if you want to, but powder works just fine. I'm going to use half of this onion, half of a large onion. I'm going to use the whole stick of butter. And I've got some heavy whipping cream here. I'm going to use some of that. Then I've got some salt and some pepper. Now I've let this cream cheese come to room temperature, and I'm going to wash this spinach and I'll be back. Now what I do differently is I don't boil the spinach. I wilt it in butter. And I'm going to warn you now, I have a 7-quart Dutch oven, and I should have gotten it out because this is just a little bit too small. It'll hold all the spinach, but it's a little difficult. So in a big Dutch oven, I'm melting some butter. I've washed this spinach, and I'm just going to pack it down in there. So why do I do that? It is a little bit more trouble than boiling it, but with spinach, to me, if you boil it too much, you've lost all the nutrition and some of the color and a lot of the flavor. So I just always do it in a Dutch oven, wilted instead of boiled. So I've packed in as much as I reasonably can, and I'm going to put a lid on the pot and let it cook on, this is medium-low heat, for about 5 minutes. Sorry, my camera shakes a little bit. I'm going to put a half teaspoonful of salt on it. That will help it wilt. And I'll have to add more salt later probably, but right now we're going with a half teaspoon. And I'll put this lid on. I'm going to let it sit here and wilt for about 5 minutes and then come back. So you see I've got a lot more room in the pan now. So I'm going to take the next step. I'm going to add about a half cup of chicken broth. And yeah, see, that's half cup. I'm really good at that. Anyway, normally when I cook spinach, I don't cook this much. I'm making this for other people. And I just use 1 pack when I'm cooking just for me. And you know, 1 pack is just about enough for 1 person. I do it in a black iron skillet with the lid, but I got out this Dutch oven because I'm making a big portion. So the rest of this is going to fit in here now. And you just pack it in. And when we get some steam going, and that should be pretty quickly, I'm going to put the lid back on it, medium-low heat, for about 15 minutes. And then our spinach should be ready. A little bit more salt on this that I put on top. You know, I just think spinach is beautiful. When I was a kid, I wouldn't eat it, but you know, what I missed all those years, I now love it. So, set the timer, 15 minutes, once you've got a little steam going, and I'll be back. So that cooked, and I've got it draining. I wiped the pan out with a paper towel, and I'm put in a little bit more butter, and this is my onions. This is the half of that medium to large onion, and I cut it in fairly good sized chunks, and I'm just going to let that brown. Now I'm not going to cook it to caramelization. I just want to let it get soft, translucent, and I'm putting a little salt on top. You know, I just find it better if you put in salt a little at a time all along when you're layering your flavors. Then I'm going to add about a half teaspoonful of garlic powder. as I say, you can use fresh garlic if you want. You can use minced garlic. Put it in toward the end because I don't want it to get bitter. And I'm going to let that simmer just a little bit. Now, this is not a highly seasoned dish. The flavor comes from the spinach and the cream. And this has cooked just about long enough. You can see there's a tiny little bit of browning going on. But I tasted one of those onions and it's fairly soft. Still has just a little firmness, but it's fairly soft. And it's getting just a tiny bit of color on it, which you probably can't even see on the camera, but a tiny bit of color. I'm going to throw my pepper in there now, and I'm using freshly ground black pepper. You can use red pepper flakes if you prefer. And now we're going to make our very simple cream sauce. I have here a half cup of heavy whipping cream, or heavy cream, they're the same thing. And I'm going to put that in and stir that in with the tomato, with the onions and the butter. And I've cut that little package, the half a package of cream cheese, into little chunks. And we're going to put that in there and stir it around. And I want it to get almost melted. It doesn't have to get totally melted because it's going to have just a little bit of time here in the pan once I add the spinach back. Now, this is a really simple and delicious cream sauce. And if you're eating keto or on any kind of a low-carb diet, remember it, because you can put this cream sauce on many other things. You can make a green bean casserole with this, mix the green beans in with it, and put some cheese on top and bake it. So here's my spinach, and you see how it's held that beautiful green color. I just put it in the colander, and it's a whole lot less, isn't it? I just put it in the colander and cut through it with a knife 4 or 5 times to break it up a little bit. Now, you may notice at the beginning I always use baby spinach so that you don't have to cut you don't have to look for woody stems and trim all that up. Just makes it easier. So I'm going to stir that around. You can see all our cream cheese is not melted yet, but it will. I've still got this on medium-low heat. And just a word about freezing. You can freeze this. I rarely make enough that I have to. But if you freeze it, when you thaw it out, it's going to separate. The dairy part is going to separate. So you'll just stir it up again really well before you serve it. I have another video making individual portions of 3 cheese cream spinach. And it, as I say, it will freeze, but you will have to do a little work on it when you serve it. So I'm going to taste this for salt and garlic, because I can always add more of either one. And it needs a little bit more salt for me, for my taste. You know, if you salt food as it's cooking, then you don't even have to put the salt shaker on the table, and people ultimately use less. If you're on a restricted sodium diet, your practice may be different, and I understand. I'm giving it a good stir to get the salt in there, and then I'm going to put the lid on and set this on the lowest heat while I cook my chicken. And I have another video on that. I'll link it at the end. Pick that up. It escaped. And then I'm going to plate it up, show you what we got. Look at that. That spinach is so good. And let me give it a taste. You know, my plate moves a little bit because I have it up on a pedestal to film it. You'd be surprised how many meals I eat right here on my kitchen counter on that pedestal. Let's taste this. I'm going to taste it. I hope you taste it later. And it's so good. You know, there really is a difference in this, the wilting it and the boiling it. You just really have more flavor. And that cream sauce is light. It's not overpowering. This was a wonderful meal. And I hope that you try it. And I hope you like it as much as I do. And I hope to see you again tomorrow on Debbie's Back Porch.